I've only ever heard of the guinea pig movies. I've never been a fan of torture flicks, or Mondo films, or anything of the sort. I like my movies to have plot, however thinly stretched of a plot it may be. We've established that I'm a fan of the movie Gummo, for Pete's sake. I'm perfectly content with little to no plot. But when it comes to simply watching torture or snuff videos, I've never found much interest. However, I was told to watch the guinea pig movies by a friend of a friend. Also for a video. The things I do for my 50 YouTube subscribers. I knew none of them were connected, and I knew there were a total of 6 full-length movies in the series, but I didn't know anything else. So naturally, I pulled up FF movies and started my journey. If you enjoy this type of content, make sure to subscribe to get notified when I post new videos like this. Also, make sure to like the video and follow my Instagram at HotFreakThing for more consistent quality content. Thank you and enjoy the video. The first segment is Hit. It simply consists of the torturers hitting the girl in the face over and over. The second segment, just as original, is entitled Kick, and they kick her. The attackers keep calling the girl a hoe and hurling various other insults at her. The third segment is Claw. They pinch and twist various parts of the girl's body with pliers. Fourth segment is footage of the girl hanging in a hammock in the woods, unconscious, and the segment is aptly named Unconscious. There are some POV shots from the spinning hammock, intercut with shots of the attackers spinning the girl around in a chair. They force her to drink something that seems to be alcohol, and then they keep spinning her around. The next segment is Sound, where they play an irritating sound for her for 20 hours, apparently. It's to the point where she's, screaming in pain, it's bad. Sixth segment is Skin. They pull off one of her fingernails. Then it's back to hanging in the hammock. The next segment is Burn. They pour boiling water on her arm. Then we have Worm. I was really dreading this one. I hate maggots. And of course, they go and throw maggots all over her bleeding and infected wounds. One effective thing about this movie is that it's mostly silent, giving more gravity to these despicable actions than there would be if the movie was accompanied by a soundtrack. But I still don't like it. The next segment is called Guts. I was really at this point hoping that they would pull out her guts, because this movie's so fucking boring, but instead I got them dumping someone else's guts on her, giggling viciously as they do it, no doubt. Yeah, they just slap her with the small intestine, thump her with the thyroid, beat her with the brain. I did just come up with random alliterative organs for that list, by the way. I doubt there was a brain in the package. And the worst part is, she screams louder here than she did when they poured boiling water on her. Then they cut and break her hand. And finally, the last segment is Needle. This is where the famous cover image comes from, and yes, it's the captor sticking a needle into the girl's eye. And it's a thick needle, too. It's like a 12 gauge. As someone who has pierced both their belly button and vertical brett with 12 gauge needles, I can safely say that this hurt. It looks pretty real, too. Her eye fills up with blood, and there are flashbacks to the torture scenes throughout the movie. The film ends with her hanging in the hammock. Once again. Apparently dead this time. Did I find anything of merit in this film? No, this is the type of shit that Max Wren from Videodrome would be pitching and praising. Half a star. On to the next film. The film opens with a scene of an apparent serial killer kidnapping a girl. I think he chloroforms her or something. She wakes up in a dingy room. There's, of course, the pale-ass guy who kidnapped her waiting there for her, and he kills a chicken, injects her with something that leaves her passed out, and licks the blood afterwards. He then goes on to do a whole lot of torture for basically the entire film. I hardly watched this main torture section, but the gist of it is that he cuts off all her limbs. This one was a bit more interesting than the first, but I was paying way less attention to this one than I was the first. I think I was getting a bit too tired and a bit too high at this point. I remember looking up and seeing the girl's head get chopped off, hitting the wall, accompanied by one of the only sound effects in the entire film. It's also apparent that when he cut off all her limbs, she was just too drugged up to notice. I don't know what drugs he put her on, but I need enough of them to last me through Trump's presidency. Then he eats one of her eyeballs and comes his pants. And it's just like his collection, a room full of oddities that I actually love seeing since I'm a huge fan of taxidermy and wet specimens and teeth and bones and stuff like that. He's also got a bubbling pot of hands and blood. It's saying a lot that I didn't notice either of these movies were over until they had already been over for a while, because I was focused on scripting this video, and also because there is no fucking sound in these movies. If these movies were just hour-long music videos, I'd be a lot more down to watch them. That would give them a purpose. Right now, these feel lazy and purely for shot content. I mean, I know that's the intention, but I would venture to say that at least a few people out there think this is a great film for other reasons. To them I ask, what other reasons are there? What hidden meaning did you find in the fucking guinea pig films? To each their own, but I'm going to assume you're a creep and a weirdo. Moving on. This guy's apartment is dilapidated as all heck, so naturally he decides to cut himself. Totally logical reaction. He can't bring himself to fully do it, however. And this movie actually has some opening credit music, which slaps pretty hard, not gonna lie. There's a lot of talking in this one near the beginning, most of which I didn't pay attention to, except for the fact that our MC apparently works in a software company and is very, very sad. This is apparently because his girlfriend dumped him. And he also enjoys making his feet converse and kiss. He then slits his wrist to a point that should be fatal, but for some reason, isn't. He then begins to, in front of who I believe is the person that stole his girl, pull out all of his organs and dismember himself. And today's show and entrails are over, he says, organless. Eventually, he's just a head on the table. Someone comes in who I think may be the ex-girlfriend, and the movie ends with the two operational humans playing with the head. This one's played like a comedy, but it can't get that point across super well, and it's also gory, but not played like a horror, which means it also doesn't get that point across. The worst part about this movie is that it's generally not that badly received on Letterboxd. It's not as bad as the first two, and as it introduces actual characters and some semblance of a plot. But the problem here is that the plot is boring. I don't understand you people. Next movie. This is my shit right here. So this devil woman doctor is super pretty, and my new fine bisexual self is swooning over her. There's various stories, as this is an anthology movie, including one of a man with a talking stomach tumor, a reporter attending the first ever flesh-eating party, a mild love story between a woman and a corpse, etc. This is the first in the series that I genuinely enjoyed. It's a collection of funny yet disturbing short films. There's stop-motion aspects and great practical effects. And, as I already mentioned, the MC is very, very beautiful. She's a drag queen and or a trans woman, and she is fabulous, and I'm kind of in love with her. I don't have much bad to say about this film. It's clever, made me chuckle, has lots of great visual gags and visual effects. And since this is supposed to be a roast video, I can't talk about it much longer. It feels reminiscent of some Adult Swim shit I can think of. It's goofy and bonkers. I definitely recommend this one. This might have been the movie out of the entire guinea pig franchise that I was most excited for. It was giving Hellraiser to me from the cover alone, and I love Hellraiser. I learned later that it was nothing like Hellraiser, more like Reanimator, but this was also a pleasant surprise. The film opens on a monologuing old man with wires stuck to his temples. Then we get some killer opening credit music, accompanied by lab rats and lab frogs and lab mantises and a man viciously coding throughout it all. The scientist doing the coding is in fact a man with dwarfism, so that's awesome, dwarf representation, and he takes care of his terminally ill sister. I'll read a Letterboxd review that sums this movie up pretty well. This takes a classic gothic/mad scientist story about experimenting on bodies and trying to save a family member, but remolds it for cyberpunk. It's DIY, oozy, messy, roughly painted. In that, it would fit well alongside a lot of SOV science fiction and horror being put out by labels like Saturn's Core, Visual Vengeance, and VHS Shitfest. I could easily double bill this with 16 tongues. The same reviewer, Dakota Newt, said that this felt like an arts and crafts Reanimator. No wonder I like it so much. I'm a big fan of Reanimator, and I'm a big fan of this movie. The movie ends with the same man, who we now realize is the scientist that we've been following this whole movie. It's so good, gang! Well, we made it. After two consecutively good guinea pig movies, I felt like the finale to the series couldn't possibly be bad. And I was right. Sort of. This movie follows a painter and his nosy neighbors. They've been obsessing over him since his wife left. At this point, I was very out of steam. The guinea pig movies are also different and diverse and interesting in their own unique ways, but I've been depriving myself of human contact in order to finish them. I needed to create art, write poems, Sitting and watching 3 hours of movies in one sitting isn't exactly healthy, at least not for an ADHD-ridden man like me. But anyway, the painter goes down in a manhole into the sewer to draw a mermaid that lives down there. She seems to be suffering from an infection, so the painter takes her back to his house. But he doesn't fucking know how to cure her infection, so he decides that he'll just paint her forever, which, I don't know how much of a forever there's gonna be if you can't treat her infection, dude. This man is useless! Just like all men, but, like, you know. We get a closer look at the infection in the next scene, and it's fucking bad, bro. It only gets worse throughout the movie, too. This movie's not as funny or interesting as the 2 previous, but its gore effects greatly make up for it. Good SFX could shape a film, just as I believe good music can shape a film. Really, having any one aspect of your film being extraordinary can instantly catapult it to a 3-star rating. And this movie is a good 3.5. But it's still not the most interesting movie. I caught myself getting caught up in what I was doing on my phone several times rather than paying attention to the movie. A lot of it is just her writhing in pain. Well, that's fine at first because it allows you to look at the remarkable SFX. It gets old after a while. The close-up of her skin covered in worms is super gross, though. And with that, we finished all the guinea pig movies. My ranking would be, from last place to first place, Devil's Experiment, Flower of Flesh and Blood, He Never Dies, Mermaid in the Manhole, Android of Notre Dame, and finally in first place, Devil's Doctor Woman. This series will stay near and dear to my heart for some time, I think. I've truly never seen anything like it. It's quite incredible, and I'm glad I started my deep dive into this disturbing movie series, because I'm super proud of not only this video, but also my vomit gore video. Let me know in the comments if there's any other movies or series you'd like to see me cover. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Have a good day!